talking to my preacher while you going to Sunday school. Said he's gonna teach a girl all about the golden rule. He said if I ever left you, surely be a fool. I'm gonna forget all about it, baby. All about the golden rule, girl. Everybody knows. Everybody knows about my good thing. Oh yeah. Talking about my good thing. Talking about my good thing. Love me to won't leave my baby alone.
Oh man, that is some Jimmy Wolf. It is October 27th, Friday, October 27th. Welcome to Let's Talk Native on the LTN Radio Network. This program breaks all the rules for Native radio. No buffalo speeches, no mystic healing, no special Indian prayers. We tackle the real issues facing Native people with a look back at our glorious and our grave history, a tough look at where we're at now, and a look forward to our ongoing battles for sovereignty and autonomy. Let's Talk Native is produced in association with Iroquois Promotions on the LTN Radio Network, streaming live from the Cattaraugus territory of the Seneca Nation, and simulcast and rebroadcast on the Gwe, CKWE, and Tendinega. You can find the live stream of our audio on www.ltnradionet.com. And of course, we are streaming live on Facebook. So you're getting top-notch audio and some video if you're catching us on Facebook. And I encourage you, this is a great platform for checking out the show because, for one thing, you can comment, and I've got the computer in front of me, so I can see your comments. I'm not really great about reading long comments while I'm talking at the same time, but when I go to break, and we're going to go to break with some great music today, and I got two artists that I'm really trying to feature in a big way for this show, and maybe for a couple of shows going forward, and I'll tell you why. Of course, that was Jimmy Wolf, and Jimmy Wolf is my buddy, just absolute blues guitarist extraordinaire. I mean, he's in the Blues Hall of Fame here in New York State. He lives in Central New York, and he's played with some of the greats. And Jimmy Wolf is coming to play at the Seneca Niagara Casino on Saturday, November 11th. He will be playing, he and Blackfoot. So Blackfoot with their special guest, Jimmy Wolf, at the Seneca Niagara Casino. That's at the Bears Den Lounge. And that's a great place to check out artists because it's a little bit more intimate. It's like a theater in the half round, so to speak. And it's, every seat is good. The sound is great in there. I'm going to make it up there. So if you want to go up and check out just some great music, and I can tell you, I love playing Jimmy Wolf, but to see him play is really where it's at, because that's when you're going to see. I mean, he does his best when he's in front of a live audience, and I'm not saying he doesn't record well, but when you watch his his guitar playing, it's just incredible. It's just incredible. So again, that's Saturday, November 11th. Isn't that like Canandaigua Treaty Day or something like that? Yeah. So I'd rather go up and check out Jimmy Wolf than go march out in Canandaigua. So if you don't want to go out there, then by all means, make it up to the Seneca Niagara Casino on it's 8 p.m. Saturday, November 11th. Now, next weekend is Indigenous is performing, and that's Saturday, November 4th, and they've got Logan Stats playing. So I'm going to play some Logan Stats music here, and I'm going to play some probably another track of Jimmy Wolf as well. And Jimmy's going to join us on the show, maybe next Friday or the following Monday after that. But sometime before his show up at the casino, I'll have Jimmy join us for the program here. And I've had the great pleasure to get to know Jimmy, and met him several times. We stay in touch all the time, and I really look forward to seeing him. It's been over a year since I've had a chance to check him out, and I know he's got some new stuff that's out there. In fact, I think he's posting a couple of YouTube videos lately. In fact, maybe for the next show, I'll pull some of his new music off of YouTube or whatever, and we'll get that into the mix. Again, one of my favorites. and again, especially one of my favorites to see perform live. So that's Jimmy Wolf. Again, November 11th, 8 p.m. at the Seneca Niagara Casino in the Bears Den, and next weekend, and I'll mention it again on Saturday, November 4th, is Logan Stats and Indigenous. And I play Indigenous all the time here. I don't think I've got any Blackfoot. I'll have to look for their stuff and get some of their stuff up on the in my record my music collection here. But certainly I play Indigenous quite frequently and plenty of Logan Stats. So and we'll play some of his music in case you don't recall who he is. And and I realize, look, this is the hard part about being a native musician. It is so hard to pierce that veil of the industry and really hit the mainstream and get played on the radio. And that's why the Native American Music Awards. Oh, I got my NAMA shirt on right now. The Native American Music Awards is so important because it is the opportunity to see all these artists come together. And it's also an advocacy group, the Native American Music Association. It was created to advocate for these artists, and almost because of the fact that regardless of the talent, it is very difficult. And of course, you can check out the movie Rumble, and I've played excerpts of that trailer. I'm going to screen that film in Long Island this next month at the Cinema Arts Center in Huntington, and it's played around the area. In fact, they played it down in Salamanca a couple of weeks ago. And Rumble gives anybody who checks this movie out, you're going to see the influence that Native people have had on contemporary music. And in spite of that influence, it is just very, very difficult for Native people to make it big in the industry. Now, and I'm not even suggesting that that's why Native people do or anybody does music, but it really is unfortunate that some of these great artists like Stevie Salas and Jimmy Wolf and Murray Porter and so many more, they don't get the opportunities that others do. And that's, look, it doesn't make their music any less. It just means that less people get exposed to it. So that's kind of why I feel strongly about playing their music and getting their music played, at least as a part of this show. All right. So I wanted to revisit last year. I mean, we're a year ago right now. Everything was about Standing Rock. I mean, it didn't matter where you were as a Native person. Every territory was standing with Standing Rock. And it was one of those galvanizing issues, for Native people to really stand with them, even though when in retrospect and as you look at it now, you realize that there was controversy. There was controversy on how it came to be. How did the Dakota Access Pipeline get to where it was at? And of course, it's not like it snuck up on the Lakota. I mean, the fact of the matter is, Barack Obama made a visit out there, out to Cannonball in Standing Rock. I mean, they did a big flag waving demonstration, and Barack Obama gave this big speech about how they were going to. In fact, I should have played that speech today about how they were going to. He was actually quoted and did almost a takeoff on a Sitting Bull speech about how important it was to build something for the future of the children of Lakota territory. And of course, what did Obama promote? A pipeline that would cross their water supply, their river. And so as much as we look at the current occupant of the White House with a lot of distrust, a lot of frankly embarrassment. I mean, it's almost the absurdity of who is in the White House is just incredible. But it's also important to realize that that Dakota Access Pipeline was a Barack Obama administration enterprise. I mean, that was built on his watch. It was proposed on his watch. It was approved on his watch. And it was built. 90% of it was built, or 95% of it was built during his administration. A year ago, there were people that were talking all about how we'll get Obama to stop this thing. Well, what was built on his watch? I mean, it's really easy for Native people to view the Republicans in because they hold us in such low regard. But the reality is the Democrats don't hold us in much higher regard, and it didn't matter that there's a black man in the White House. He was still pushing, and in fact, you know what they referred to these like the Keystone XL pipeline and this the Dakota Access pipeline. You know what they called them? They called them federal infrastructure projects. In fact, it was a year ago today, and there's a couple of significant things that happened a year ago today, and we'll get into as many of them as we can. But a year ago today, a statement came from the Clinton campaign. If you recall, Trump hadn't gotten elected yet, but this statement came from the Clinton campaign, and I want you to hear this because the meaning of what is being said here is important. Statement on the Dakota Access Pipeline. We received a letter today from the representatives of the tribes protesting the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline. From the beginning of this campaign, Secretary Clinton has been clear that she thinks all voices should be heard and all views considered in federal infrastructure projects. Now, all of the parties involved, including the federal government, the pipeline company, and contractors, the state of New York, the state of North Dakota, and the tribes, need to find a path forward that serves the broadest public interest. As that happens, it is important that on the ground in North Dakota, everyone respect demonstrators' rights to protest peacefully and workers' rights to do their job safely. Look, yeah, obviously she crashed and burned in this election. But when I read this statement a year ago, and I'm reading it from my post of the statement from the Clinton campaign, let's revisit what she said. She said all views should be considered in federal infrastructure projects. So even though this is a private pipeline from an oil company, she refers to this as a federal infrastructure project. And that's significant. And the reason it's significant is because we hear a lot, especially with this administration, about infrastructure projects. Oh, we want to spend, $3 trillion, or we want to do trillions of dollars of investment in infrastructure. You think they're talking about highways. You think they're talking about repaving the road out in front of your house. No, they're talking about pipelines. They're talking about border walls. They're talking about, bolstering, the grid for power companies. See, you think you have this idea because when the picture that they're going to post up, when they talk about infrastructure and they want to create a poster, they're going to show you nice, shiny bridges. They're going to show you clean pavement. They aren't going to show you leaking pipelines. They aren't going to show you, a prison wall, border wall. The same thing, right? No, that's not what they're going to show you for federal infrastructure projects. But this is Secretary Clinton has been clear that she thinks all voices should be heard. Now, well, let me go on. and what she's saying is that that everybody should be heard, and everybody, all these voices should be considered so that it serves the broadest public interest. Now, there we go again. It's a numbers game. We, Native people, we are not the broadest public interest. We are never the broadest public interest. When Barack Obama said of the Washington Redskins and said, if I had a team and that team had a name that offended a significant number of people, I'd think about changing. I consider changing the name. So if you aren't a significant number of people offended, then it's okay. If you're only a small amount of people that are offended by a name, then it's okay. That was Barack Obama's statement that everybody raved about. Oh, yeah, Barack Obama, he really slammed the Redskins. No, he didn't. He created a three-part hypothetical statement that said, if I owned a team and if that team name offended a certain number of people, a significant number of people, I think about changing it. I mean, I don't know how he can throw that many hypothetical twists into one statement, but that's what he did. And so what's Hillary Clinton say? the one who wanted to be president, she refers to pipelines as federal infrastructure projects, and that the broadest public interest is what should be served. Not the people who are going to be the most directly affected by it. That's not what's important here. The Lakota aren't what's supposed to be considered only as a voice, only as the chatter. But in the end of the day, look, you guys aren't a very big population. That's why we didn't run it by Bismarck. Yeah, we didn't run it up by Bismarck. There's a lot of people that live up there. Now, it wouldn't serve the broadest public interest to put a pipeline by where many people live. Let's run it where marginalized people live, because marginalized people, by definition, are not part of the broad public. So the broad public interest, can be served by designating these areas as what we would call sacrifice zones. Zones that have, or areas of land that either have marginalized people, limited population, and frankly, it's out of the way. Nobody's going to see it. So we're going to call those sacrifice zones. So that's what Hillary Clinton said. Now, here's the thing that's important. I just did a video this past week. Jake and I worked on a video for, and I talked about the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Now, this is another example here where Hillary Clinton and of course Barack Obama and certainly Donald Trump, they don't consider the language of the international community as far as what they think is the minimum standard for doing things on Native territories. There, in the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, they say free, prior, and informed consent is what is necessary. That has to be gotten from Native people. Free, prior, and informed consent. Not being jerked around by language, not being pressured, not being coerced, and not just giving a voice at the table so you can check a box. Say, yeah, we heard the Indians. Yeah, we heard them. We heard their grievances, but now we're going to serve the broadest public interest. No, that's not what the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People say. So Hillary Clinton, she was no more committed to the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples than Barack Obama was, and these two are far less committed to it than somebody like Donald Trump. For him, the UN was just a place that he could stand up and give a speech, and then when he's not in that building, he can call it down. So that was a year ago. So what else happened a year ago today? I'll tell you what happened a year ago today. Red Fawn got arrested. Red Fawn Palace got arrested. She allegedly, they claim that while they were physically taking her into custody, that she somehow came up with a pistol and fired it off. So they charged her, and she's been in custody since for a year now, based on this charge that even though no Native people were armed at these camps, no Native people were bringing arms in. The only weapons that were brought there were by contractors or by the police themselves. But somehow, they claim that she fired a shot into the ground or something. Of course, nobody was hit by anything, but they claim that she fired a shot, and and so that was a year ago. That was a year ago today. Now, everybody else who's been arrested has been released. Everybody else who's been arrested has had their charges dropped, or in the case of some people, they pled their cases out. Like Jill Stein, she took a plea bargain so she wouldn't have to face some sort of felony. She didn't fight it; she pled it out. Amy Goodman, yeah, she fought it. She brought her bevy of lawyers and she fought and had her riot charges her thrown out. The movie stars, Woodley and others who showed up there, who, if they were charged, all that stuff's been dismissed. And in fact, most Native people who have had charges lodged against them, they were thrown out by now, but not Red Fawn. In fact, today, a year after she was this incident, she was moved. She was moved from where she was held in detention to a halfway house, which is kind of interesting. Usually a halfway house, and she's being hers is a federal charge from what I understand. So usually a halfway house is where somebody who's gone to prison, either they get a light sentence, and so they serve a short period of time in a halfway house. Usually, what a halfway house is used for is when you've gone into prison, and the last 6 months of your prison stay, they'll send you to a halfway house. It gets you. It's called community custody, so you can finish your prison sentence as somebody in community custody, and that allows you to actually get a job. You can actually leave the facility, the halfway house. You're not bound to be there 24/7. In her case, from what I understand, they're going to put a GPS device on her. But it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting that although she hasn't even gone to trial yet, they are letting her be held at a halfway house pending her trial, which probably isn't going to happen until after the first of the year now. And it'll probably be a week to 10 days, 10-day trial. And we don't do well in their trials, so the likelihood of her beating this charge in a trial, unless some thunderbolt comes through, or some smoking gun develops that proves that they set her up, there's a good chance that she's she'll get they'll get a conviction. And the conviction rate in federal for the federal government is really, really high. They don't bring a charge, they don't indict unless they're pretty sure they can convict. And I know that. I went through the system, and I certainly wasn't guilty of what I was charged with. But it's a pretty stacked deck by the time they haul you. I mean, here's the thing: anybody can be charged. Really at any level, and if with the resources that they can throw at you, they can build a charge against you. And it doesn't matter how innocent you think you are. If the federal government wants to convict you, especially the federal government, they'll build a case because they've got all these tools. They got these things like conspiracy. You don't even have to do anything. All they've got to say is cite enough what they would call overt acts that were in the furtherance of this conspiracy. So that you met. Meeting isn't a crime. That you conspired, that you planned. It's kind of like thought police, and it's kind of like the Catholic Church. You don't have to commit adultery to be guilty of a sin in the Catholic Church. You just have to think about committing adultery. So the thought police are there. So that's what conspiracy laws are. Conspiracy laws are tools of prosecutors, so they can convict people even if they don't have enough evidence to charge you with a substantive crime. They can convict you of conspiracy. So, take it from me. I mean, if you make waves, there's always the chance that, depending on who you offend, they could bring charges and they can make them stick. And granted, most of us don't have the high priced lawyers, and a good lawyer may be able to, do battle with you, but that's part of the whole calculation, right? Part of the calculation in bringing charges against people of color is that we aren't going to mount much of a defense. So what they hope is that you'll just plead it out. I know when I went through my stuff, I mean they said give me Kane and Marks for a year and everybody else walks. So they just wanted us to plead guilty to something. Jill Stein, they got her to plead guilty to something, so they got the conviction. And that's all they care about is getting their numbers up. But I tell you, if you have the nerve, if you have the gall to proclaim your innocence and take them to trial, they're going to throw a lot of resources at you. And so look, I mean, I got my fingers crossed, and my thoughts are out there for Red Fawn, and I hope that I hope she kills them in this trial. I don't mean literally. I hope she does well, but I know how the system works. So I mean that's just a brief look. I mean, you got Clinton's statement coming out a year ago today, and of course Red Fawn's debacle that would have her locked up for this whole year. But the good news is, and there is not a whole lot of good news in this story for Red Fawn, is that at least she's not sitting in a jail cell. They moved her. I think it was just today or yesterday. They just moved her So, and halfway houses are, a lot better than being in a prison cell. I mean, there's no question about that. So, so at least she's, going to see a certain amount of freedom, and certainly a lot of daylight. And then again, she'll have an ankle bracelet on or something else, so she doesn't, doesn't flee. Her risk to flight is reduced. But anyway, that's two stories. Now we're gonna take a break here in a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit more because about Standing Rock, because I think when we look back and we understand, for all of the unity that existed at times, there was also factionalism. There were people that were driving divisions amongst the camps there, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we come back. I think and we'll also talk about where are they nows? The Chase Iron Eyes and the Dave Archambos. Where are they now? The Myron Deweys. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about some of those guys when we come back. But let's see. Should I do? No, maybe we'll do a Logan Stats since he's again, Logan Stats is performing this coming Saturday, November 4th, 8 p.m. at the Bears Den at the Seneca Niagara Casino with Indigenous. And here's his first track off of Goodbye Goldia, which is the CD that won him debut artist of the year. Running Like a River.
And where it goes, best love I've ever known. And there it goes, right out the window. Should've washed away my sin and done an honest way. Should've vanquished all my demons and broke free from that cage. Cause you deserve a better man. Cause you deserve a better plan. You can always find better love if you're running like the river does. Your lover won't deliver trust. You're just running like the river does. You're just running like the river does. Can you feel it? Yeah. Can you feel it? Yeah. Should've washed away my sin and done an honest way. Should've vanquished all my demons and broke free from that cage. You deserve a better man, and you deserve a better plan. You can always find better love if you're running like the river does. And your lover won't deliver trust. You're just running like the river does. running like the river does.
All right, that's again, that's Logan Stats, and that's from his CD Goodbye Goldia. Some really good stuff there, and I like his sound. I like what Logan does, and he's going to be at the Seneca Niagara Casino next Saturday, November 4th, 8 p.m. He's performing with Indigenous, and and they're great too. So I think it's cool. I'm glad to see the casino bringing some of these native artists in, and I really encourage that to happen. I think we have an obligation, for one thing, to promote native artists. My only thing I gotta say is it's not enough to give them a date on the schedule. I think they really do have to get promoted. So, but anyway, that's Logan Stats, and I'm gonna try to make it up there next Saturday for that show as well. I don't go out much, so this is for me to go out and see even to watch live music is not something that I do too much. So maybe my wife and I'll head up there to check out Indigenous and Logan Stats next weekend, and then the following weekend we'll get up there and see Blackfoot and Jimmy Wolf. Hey, look, I want to give a shout out to my sponsors. I want to thank Ross and Holly John and the RJE family of businesses, Eric White and ERW Enterprises, my good friends Ed Schindler and Cynthia Trice and Neville Spring, Sugar Montour, and I want to thank the Seneca Nation for supporting the program. I also want to thank many others who help from time to time, who have helped perhaps in the past, because they've allowed me to continue to educate, entertain, and inform for more than 7 years. I mean, we're in our 8th year now, and without these guys, I would not have been able to do this, especially when we were buying airtime on commercial radio. So I want to thank all of you for joining in the fight and doing your part to help this native voice and to help a platform continue to exist, because it isn't just what we're doing here. It's what I'm doing in New York on WBAI. It's what I write. It's all this stuff. I mean, it's the support that I get for doing this show allows me to do more than the show. So I want to thank all of you. I also want to thank Unity Stream and Apache Radio Net for providing our streaming. I want to thank CKWE for both the simulcast and the rebroadcast of our show, as well as Networks Radio, Real People's Media, and Indigenous Resistance Radio. All of you for carrying this program. And I also want to thank all of you who share the show, who share our videos. Like I said, Jake and I did a video on the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. So I hope people check that out. Those are shorter videos. There's something you can watch in 5 or 10 minutes and gain a little bit of information you perhaps didn't know. We do. I mean, I do a 1-hour show twice a week here with Let's Talk Native. Mondays and Friday nights, we from 9 to 10. There's this show. On Thursdays, I do a 2-hour show, 10 till noon. Normally on WBAI, but we've been doing a couple of shows from here from this studio. So that's a 2-hour show. So you got a 1-hour block, you got a 2-hour block, and then we do these shorter videos that are produced specifically for our Let's Talk Native TV channel on YouTube. And of course, then there's the things that I write. In fact, I posted an article that I wrote for the Buffalo News this week that I'm not sure it's ever going to get run. When I sent it in to the Buffalo News, the first thing I got back was, it's too long. It's 760 words. It's got to be down, to 400 and something. So I cut off a paragraph and I sent it back, and they said, it's still too long. So then I trimmed it down some more and I sent it in. So I don't know if it'll get run, but what does get run in the paper, if it gets run, will be a much shorter version. So I posted it both as a just a standard post, but also as a document that I created. So check it out. I'd be interested. This is a little bit different take. I mean, part of what this last post was really about why isn't anybody doing the numbers, and so check it out, and I'd like to see your feedback and hear your feedback. So I'd look forward to that. Okay, look, we got one of the comments that somebody brought up was about plants that were sent out there for at the at Standing Rock, and of course, with all this Russia stuff going on, especially the right is now looking to blame Russia, this whole Russian investigation on the Clinton campaign. The fact of the matter is the original dossier that was being created on Trump was actually started by the Republicans who didn't want him to get the nomination, and once he got it, the Clinton campaign ran with it, and there's a lot of strange things. I mean, obviously there's some strange dealings between Russia and Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not the successful businessman that people think he is, and he has found a lot of support and a lot of help, probably to the point of money laundering and anything else from Russia, and and Russia has always wanted to kind of they wanted to display just how the system that the United States employs for governance and elections and everything else, how poor it is. They want to slam democracy, the American style democracy. And look, I'll be the first one to admit I agree with Russia on that. American democracy sucks. I mean, this whole electoral college thing. I mean, if it produces a guy like Donald Trump, that the system is flawed. The judicial system is wrong. The crime and punishment system. I mean, the disproportionate number of people that are imprisoned, and especially people of color imprisoned in the United States. I mean, there's a lot wrong here. Now, I'm not saying that because I think Russia got it right, by any means. But here's what I will say about Russia and Standing Rock. Russia has a couple of media outlets, and I don't know much about Sputnik, but the RT, Russia Today, which runs on some cable, I think it still runs on some cable channels. Russia Today. I mean, Larry King has a show on the RT network. Guys like Lee Camp, who I'm a big fan of, his Redacted Tonight show is on the RT network, and there are some good shows on the RT network. Now, did the RT network send some folks out to Standing Rock? Yeah, probably. Yeah, and the RT network did cover Standing Rock. Now, I don't know about whether they sent plants. The plants that I was worried about going to places like Standing Rock were the ones that went out there to cause trouble, the ones that tried to cause division and that kind of stuff. And I don't know. I mean, I don't really know if Russia was involved in that or not. Who's to say? I don't know that Russia played a significant role in what transpired in Standing Rock. I certainly don't think so. I mean, even the photos of Jill Stein sitting at meetings with some of the folks from Russia Today, and including I think Putin. I never necessarily associated some strong relationship between Jill Stein and the Russians. Whether there is or not. No, I could be wrong. I'm not saying that I've got that all figured out. I just don't spend a whole lot of time. I don't concern myself that much with Russia, and I'm not one of those guys who thinks that my enemy is my friend. I may agree with some things that other countries say about the United States, but that doesn't make me allies of those people who have an issue with the United States. I mean, one of the things that came out of this whole the story of these 4 guys who were killed in Niger was an admission that the United States has active military in 110 countries. 110. There's only like 270 UN recognized nation states in the world, and 110 of them have active military troops on them. I mean, and of course, there's some that don't need it, like Canada. I mean, they don't need to have. I mean, they're practically American troops themselves. So when you think about the United States would not tolerate anybody else, any other country, having military presence in 110 countries. I mean, this is the self-righteousness that that Americans, and of course, American government has, that they are the good guys, so they can put active military all over the planet. I mean, essentially, the entire globe is covered with U.S. military. I mean, sure, they don't have U.S. military inside China, but they've got plenty around Asia. They got plenty around Russia. So again, that doesn't mean that I'm a fan of China or a fan of Russia, or anybody else who has a beef with the United States. I just don't necessarily think when somebody is calling the United States out that they're wrong. I don't get all patriotic and say, oh, that can't be true. So so there's that. Now let me get back a little bit to Standing Rock, because one of the interesting things there were people who grabbed a lot of headlines. Dave Archambault, who was I don't know, was he called the chief or the tribal chairman, I guess. He was the tribal chairman of Standing Rock. He was up for re-election this year and got destroyed. I mean, like 2-1. I mean, he didn't even make a close run. He was beaten badly. So, what does that say? I mean, this is the guy, who, again, he sat in with all these meetings. He got all the press he wanted, but he also was accused of selling his people out on a number of occasions. And why did he lose this election? Did he lose the election because of the position he took, or that he didn't take a strong enough position on Standing Rock? Or did he just lose the election because their casino business got hurt during this debate, this conflict? I mean, I don't even know the answer to that. But all we do know is that Archambault got beat soundly in the election immediately following this conflict at Standing Rock. Other guys who were out there, got their names out there. Dallas Goldtooth, he was out in and out of there a bunch. And I don't know if his star got shinier from it or not. I know Dallas. Look, I like Dallas. I like the 1491s. I like these guys. But I sometimes it was hard to pin Dallas down on guys like Dave Archambault. And so it was tough to get a read on some of these guys. Myron Dewey, the guy who he was the one shooting lots of videos. The next thing you know, Myron Dewey and Chase Iron Eyes, another guy who got a lot of fame out of Standing Rock. Next thing you know, these guys are at Burning Man with a bunch of white people playing Indian. What the heck? What was that all about? I mean, for the most part, like I said, all the people who were charged had their they disposed of those charges one way or the other. The only person, the last person standing, is Red Fawn. But it does beg the question. Where are these guys now? Chase Iron Eyes was trying to use. He tried to run for Congress, and of course, absolutely, failed miserably at that. But again, these guys, there were plenty of networks that were willing to put these guys on TV. Even Amy Goodman, Lawrence O'Donnell, these guys who started to cover this thing, they were really clinging on to getting some of these guys who were they became famous because of Standing Rock. Well, some of them got famous, but the fame didn't last. Now Dave Archambault's, he's not the leader of the of Standing Rock anymore. So it does beg the question, and of course, to really wrap this thing up, let's be clear, the pipeline got built. Of course, it was built. Most of it was built during the Obama administration, and of course, everybody praised Obama when he said, "Well, I'm going to ask for an environmental review of this thing," and everybody cheered. I mean, they actually brought out fireworks and everything else out there. It was incredible. The problem is nobody read the fine lines on this thing, the fine print. All Obama in this lame duck period suggested was that there should be an environmental review on rerouting the pipeline, not an environmental review of the full length of the pipeline, not an environmental review of the detrimental effects that this pipeline could have. They said, well, let's do an environmental review on rerouting it. I mean, and of course I've created this image in my head about this pipeline that goes to the west bank of the river, stops, and then picks up on the east bank of the river. And so you're going to do an environmental assessment on what would have the least environmental impact: running it under the river like they intended, or running a pipeline 50 miles upstream, crossing there, and then running a pipeline 50 miles downstream. So giving more pipe exposure, still having to cross the river. To me, this was a no-brainer, and it was really just a stunt. And of course, they didn't even do that. So now the courts, have ruled that the Trump administration, when they pushed forward to have this thing completed, did not follow the laws as it related to the environmental reviews. I mean, it's not going to change anything. It's not like they're going to tear up pipe. So the pipeline did get built, in spite of all the demonstrations, in spite of the tent cities, in spite of all the protesters. And here is where I have a bit of an issue. As a Native person, and somebody just recently posted something on Facebook, and they about Native people becoming so religious and Christianity and all that other stuff, and I actually took it a little farther, or a little sideways, I guess. I said, whoever said we were prayerful, where did this come from? Now, it's one thing to say that that people smudge, or they burn tobacco or whatever else, but and it's another, and it's one thing to say that we had a drive for peace, that was a part of our character. Our character was to preserve and to maintain and to promote peace. There's no question about that. But promoting peace and being prayerful, like we all just sat around praying all the time, that was a part of our culture? No, that was a part of the assimilation. So for all those folks who went to Standing Rock to participate in prayer circles, how'd that work out? Yeah, how'd that work out for us? And you know what? Nobody was covering prayer circles. You know what they were covering? The militarized police that were going there and physically assaulting our people. That's what they cover. Hey, look, one of the other things I want to mention is, Red Fawn is the last person standing, but let's not forget that poor girl from New York who almost got her arm blown off, she sustained permanent damage. Now, I know she's had a lot of work done on her arm to first save her arm and then make it usable. But she suffered permanent damage to her arm as a result of the police using concussion grenades and some of the other tools. I mean, they were using concussion grenades. They were using what people are calling rubber bullets. And, they were hosing people down in sub-zero temperatures. And even their use of these non-lethal weapons, they used them in a manner that made them lethal. These rubber bullets, they were not supposed to be shot at any closer range than 10 meters, 30 feet. So it was supposed to be at least 30 feet away for them to shoot and they were shooting some of these people point blank range. Concussion grenades, they're not supposed to be shot at people. In fact, there's very explicit instructions on these things. And then they try to say, "Oh no, it wasn't a concussion grenade. It was their improvised explosive devices these terrorist Indians were using," and there was no evidence of that. But when I hear all of the talk about us being prayerful, that we are a prayerful people, I don't know where that came from. I'm not. I'll say that right now. I'm not a prayerful person. I don't believe in prayer. I have no problem with burning tobacco and smudging and all that, because I interpret that differently than most people do. And as far as doing an opening or a junta guri dekor or gununyok, to me that's not a prayer. That is an address that we do for our people to bring our minds together. And that's why we say this. Now our minds are one. I mean, that's what we say. That's literally a part of the address. We point out all of the elements of creation and the relationship that we have. And part of that relationship is our simple observation. When we look at a tree and we acknowledge what the tree does, those are our observations of that relationship that we have and others have with all these elements of creation. And we do this for a reason. First off, to remind us, so we don't lose track and we don't get this false sense of our superiority, thinking that again, buying into some of these other religious beliefs that God created us to be the lords and masters of the universe or the planet. Look, I don't even suggest that we as a creature were placed on the planet to be stewards of the earth. No, I think it was just a do no harm thing. We should have the same consideration that any animal would have, for the planet. Do no harm. I mean, our job isn't to fix the planet. Our job is to not destroy it. Now, when you consider that we've got this battle that rages between capitalism and industrialization and extraction, energy extraction, mineral extraction, use the earth up, create a dollar out of anything you can find value in. Yeah, now we have a battle on our hands because we can't say we do no harm if we end up complicit in buying the end products of all of this stuff. So I think we do have a responsibility, not because the Creator or God, placed us with this responsibility. I think we have the responsibility because, we're surrounded by, and sometimes complicit with some of the products produced by these, by these elements, by this destruction of the planet. So we should step up and say, no, we're not going to allow the destruction. And if it makes the price of something go up, then so be it. Or if it makes something less desirable, less cost effective. I mean, if you can buy a cell phone for $100 and not understand that the cost of that cell phone isn't really just $100. There's a cost associated with the cheap labor that went into it. I mean, the health that was affected by those people who worked in some Asian country to produce that cell phone. There was a cost associated with the environmental degradation that went into the extractive industry to make the products that went into that cell phone. And then there's a cost an environmental cost to dumping of that cell phone and the batteries and all of that other stuff. We have this idea that the cost of a product is just what you pay at Walmart. No, there's stranded costs. There's hidden costs. There are social costs. There are health costs. There are all of these things that are associated with every product that we buy. So while I'm not going to say that God or the Creator made us these stewards of the earth, I think we have a responsibility. And that responsibility is to do more than pray. We have to affect lifestyles. And yeah, we have to resist. Look, I don't advocate violence. But you can't claim to be a pacifist if you have no ability to fight. Pacifism is choosing the way of peace. It is being in a position to fight for peace. It is being postured so you have some leverage to insist on peace. The inability to fight does not make you a pacifist. It makes you weak. So to say, well, I don't want to flatten a tire on a construction vehicle. In fact, I don't even want to paint my name on the blade of a bulldozer because that might be looked at as vandalism. I have more respect for those guys who chained themselves to backhoes and excavators than the ones who just sat around to do prayer circles. And look, I'm not condemning anybody. I think everybody who went to Standing Rock, regardless of whether they just did prayer circles or not. I mean, if you went there and you manned a kitchen, man, I'm glad you did it. I was proud to see people step up. The problem is we didn't succeed. In Oka, in Gunazadage, the golf course didn't get built. Our people resisted. And yeah, our people got arrested and and beaten, stabbed. But the golf course didn't get built. We still sustain and maintain. In Caledonia, the resistance stopped the building. The thing is, at some point we have to decide as Native people, is that what we've become? Just prayerful? Is that all we are? We're just prayerful? I mean, there's a reason that I advocate the flag behind me, or not just the Kanaka Maoli flag, the unity flag, or what most people call the warrior flag. And the reason I promote that is because it's a symbol of resistance. It's not a symbol of war. I mean, there's no war on that flag. It's the sun. I mean, and a generic image of a Native person. It was meant to be a unifying. It was created as a unity flag. It got known as the warrior flag because it got associated with Mohawks. I mean, being called a warrior wasn't the worst thing that we were ever called. There's a lot worse things we've been called than that. But it was a symbol of resistance. It's not a symbol of a prayerful people. And that resistance, part of that resistance has always been the ability to fight for peace. So that's where we're at. The pipeline's built. From what I understand, it's even had a few incidents of leakage. Now, am I saying that the resistance at Standing Rock was a complete failure? No, I think we brought attention, and I think we have a different place in the dialogue now. I am concerned that for all of the conversation about Standing Rock, I don't think I ever heard anybody mention any of the articles of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. So again, if you get a chance, check out the video that I produced this week with Jake Proud, and give me your thoughts on it. Look, I know a lot of people vehemently oppose the United Nations, and I address that. But my point is, the international community approved this declaration as the minimum standard, a standard that the United States and Canada still refuse to meet. And I think we have to call them out on it. So check that out. Hey, we'll be back on Monday. And we're going to do another Let's Talk, my WBAI show, my New York show. We're going to do that here next week as well. At least I'm pretty sure we will be doing it here. And of course, again, a reminder, Saturday, November 4th, Indigenous with Logan Stats at the Bears Den up in the Seneca Niagara Casino. And then the following Saturday, November 11th, Blackfoot with Jimmy Wolf. And maybe we'll go out with another Jimmy Wolf song, and we'll call it a night. Hey, thanks for listening, and we'll see you on Monday.